Hey guys, remember way back when I said I was going to start doing vlogs? And then I waited a couple of months? Well, here we are. This is number one. I have all of your suggestions from the comments in the previous video in a nice little list, and I'm not going to cover any of them right now because it's October and I have certain things on the mind. And I put a poll up on Twitter earlier today and asked if you guys wanted me to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's or the art of introducing internet friends to one's parents. Of course, the latter one wound up being internet introductions because Twitter polls don't actually believe in giving you a good amount of space to put things in. So the overwhelming majority of you voted for Five Nights at Freddy's, and we will talk about 6 degrees of how I know this person in a different video, because I have some interesting family stories. Yeah, this is not a Let's Play. This is not a theory video, because there are people who are, let's be real, there's Matt, who is probably in a closet somewhere sobbing now that Sister Location is out and he has to rework everything to make it work in his grand theory of everything. I do not envy that man his job, but boy does he beat the hell out of it. Just well done, sir. Yeah, no, I am here to talk about the games. I'm here to talk about the games as they relate to me. I'm here to talk about my experiences with the games. This is just going to be me nattering on and revealing just how much of a complete horror movie wuss I truly am. Because for all of the stuff that we do for Silver Screams and watching Scream and Scream Queens and horror trailers, I don't handle this very well. I don't handle horror. I'm really, really bad at this. There's a Jeremy Jahns review where he's talking about the original Paranormal Activity. Words. I am good at this. It's 9 o'clock on a Friday and I'm super tired. Yeah. He's talking about the original Paranormal Activity, and the poster for that is a couple of people lying in a bed. And his comment is, it's basically, you are here. And that's kind of where I get stuck on things in terms of horror, because I'm usually okay watching it, or mostly okay watching it, and then it hits, 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., because I'm really bad at going to bed at anything vaguely resembling on time. And the lights go out and I'm lying in my room going, shit. Yes, I'm lying in my room meowing. Here comes winter, right on schedule. This cat, I swear. Yeah, so I'm usually okay with the media itself. It's just afterwards, when everything's dark and quiet, that I kind of lie there and go, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real. Son of a bitch, I am not sleeping tonight. Like, that is how I live my life. So I try not to watch a lot of horror. Scream as a franchise doesn't really scare me. Scream Queens doesn't really scare me. That's the kind of stuff that I can handle okay. When it starts getting supernatural and logic just goes right the fuck out the window, that's when I stop being able to handle things. So the original Five Nights at Freddy's scared the fuck out of me. Just absolutely terrified, jumping at shadows, looking around corners. It was bad. It was really bad. And I did this to myself. The Five Nights at Freddy's has been a franchise going on for 2.5 years. I don't remember when the first game was released exactly. I know it was about 2.5 years ago, because I know the second game was released in November of that year. There's a reason I remember that specifically. But I don't honestly remember how it crossed my radar. I know it was there. I know that people started talking about it. I can't remember who originally put the idea in my head, but I know I was watching Achievement Hunter at the time. I don't do a ton of Let's Plays aside from very specific people. But they had a series of videos, where Michael and Gavin would sit down and play a game together. And one of the ones they pulled up was Five Nights at Freddy's. And I was like, okay, I'm enjoying this, let's do the thing. I turned the video off 3 or 4 different times before I managed to make it through the entire thing. The atmosphere got me that badly. Like that badly. The first time Bonnie moved and was in a different camera, I was just like, nope! Closed the window, everything. I was done. Then about half an hour later, it was, you know what? I'm gonna give it another try. I'm gonna give it another try. And Megan is watching me do this and just laughing because I am the biggest wuss on the planet. Finally got through the whole video with her, and they got through night 1 after a couple of tries and then died almost immediately in night 2 because Foxy came to say hello. Yeah. And it's like an 8 to 10 minute video, 12 at the most, and it took me hours to get through the whole thing because I was so freaked out. And I started talking with people about it, and it kind of got on my radar, and then someone said, watch Markiplier's playthrough. I'm like, okay, who the hell is Markiplier? So they send me the link, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. Scared the flying daylights out of me, but I can do this. And then I wound up on TV Tropes, and I wound up looking up the lore, and there are certain franchises like this that have enough flexibility in the lore that I'll just kind of wiggle in there and be like, so how does this work? So what are we doing? So what are the mechanics? So how let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. What's the story? If you give me enough holes in a story and it's not like plot holes, this shouldn't have happened, but it did because reasons. If it's actual story ambiguity, if there's an answer there but we don't have it yet, things like that, I will go crazy filling it in. Like, I absolutely love to do that. And there's been maybe half a dozen canons that have had enough of that ambiguity where I've just been like, oh, yes please. Yu-Gi-Oh! When it first came out. Oh my god, I was in it to win it free with Yu-Gi-Oh! For years because the whole who is the pharaoh? What is this? What is that? I was down. I was absolutely down. Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts still has me. Kingdom Hearts is one of those fandoms that just kind of grabbed my heartstrings and ran away with them, and I'm still trailing behind 10, 12 years. Oh, God. Oh, remind me to talk about Kingdom Hearts later because that is a rabbit hole. That is a Disney-themed rabbit hole. Cloverfield actually was another instance of me going outside of my comfort zone and watching something that scared the bejesus out of me. And then going crazy trying to figure out what the rest of the story was. Cloverfield was my first real into viral marketing and sort of story that could be released that way. And ask me about Daisy Chain sometime. Cloverfield scared the shit out of me, but it also kind of changed my life. And then Five Nights at Freddy's with the 5 kids were lured into the back and then murdered and then presumably put in these suits and then this, and I was just like, how did this happen? What's this? Who are the characters? How did this happen? What kind of world does this work in? What weird supernatural magical realism sort of world is this? So I was like, yeah, I'm into this. I'm intrigued. It still terrifies me, but I want to know more. And then FNAF 2, which was slated to come out in March, I believe, came out that November. And I remember it being November because Markiplier released his first video the first Monday of November, I think it was, possibly the second Monday. And I watched it while I was alone in the house, and it was dark. I scared the hell out of myself. And then I drove 40 minutes to go to a NaNoWriMo write-in. And drove in silence the entire time, nearly jumped out of my skin when my GPS told me my exit was coming up, and then wrote 5,000 words trying to figure out the world that FNAF takes place in, and developing supernatural things and agencies that take care of that, and yeah, no. FNAF is really good for my writing sometimes, because it's therapy. It's therapy. It's great. So yeah, FNAF 2. 3 actually came out in March, when I was in Vegas, at a conference, so it wasn't like, Vegas! It was like, do stuff for work! It was not as much fun. And it never scared me. 2 also scared the bejesus out of me. 3, not so much. And I think it's partially because of where I was watching it. I was at a hotel, the Wi-Fi was terrible, so I was sitting on the phone with my headphones in watching the Markiplier's playthroughs in the lobby. I mean, this is not really good get scared things, because I'm sitting in the Rio next to the craps table watching stuff on my phone. That's not scary. It's the Rio. Yeah, so it never scared me, but it definitely intrigued me. I loved the increase. I love the different mechanics. I love the increase in the story for 3. 3 is one of my favorites, despite the fact that you're supposed to be scared. It's a horror game. Never actually worked on me. Then 4 came out later that year, and I didn't like 4 at all. Just part of it was, again, I have actually never played these games, because again, I'm not going to sleep that night. Never mind the fact that FNAF 1 is in my Steam wishlist. Someday I'm going to do a charity stream and you guys are going to laugh your asses off at me when I do that, but not till then. Not for a while. But FNAF 4 came out and I wasn't intrigued. The story was interesting, the story about this kid figuring out all the stuff from the older Fredbear's Fun Time Pizzeria, or whatever it was, the earlier ones. But the actual gameplay, the jump scares, the checking at the doors, the checking the bed, the listening mechanic, it made watching Let's Players boring. And I couldn't figure out why Scott, who knew that Let's Players were part of why his games were so damn popular, would make that sort of mechanic, which is really, really good for individual atmosphere and terrible for someone who's doing a running commentary on it. Because at this point, Scott knows who Markiplier is. Scott knows who a ton of these Let's Players are. He has to. There's no way. And so I thought that was disappointing, all told. I liked the story aspect of it, but the actual gameplay was like, this is a thing, and it occurred. And then we got the Halloween update later that year, which, okay, cool, awesome. And then we had FNAF World. All I know about FNAF World was that it was a train wreck upon arrival because there was no explanation for anything. And it was so much fun watching people play it because everyone was just going, I don't know what I'm doing! The train has no brakes! Pizzas! Jump scares! Yay! It was a ton of fun to watch. It was beautiful. And then things kind of went quiet. We talk about FNAF. I got to the point where if I need to do a whole bunch of chores, if I'm cleaning, if I'm doing whatever, if I'm doing mindless things at work that need to be done, I will pull up Markiplier's FNAF playthrough playlist, throw in my headphones, and then just go. It's background noise for me. So then, Sister Location's coming out. Great, awesome. The trailers look great, fantastic. Look at all these teaser images. Oh man, he's good at those. And then the game actually comes out this past weekend, which God knows when this video is actually going up, but October. The game comes out, and I'm like, I can totally do this. It's a FNAF game. I am super used to these. Let's watch it. I don't remember the last time I was that scared. Oh my God. I was not expecting Sister Location to be what it was. I was expecting more of the same in some capacity with the cameras and with the... That's what I was expecting. And I'm going into full Sister Location spoilers, so if that's a problem, you know, click away for a while. We'll eventually come back to it, but no guarantees. So that's your spoiler warning. And we're going. I was not expecting the direct interaction with the animatronics. Every other thing has just been keep them from getting to you. It's a big game of keep away and you're the ball. This game specifically puts you in front of them and forces you to interact with them, and you have to go into their territory and go around them, as opposed to them continually pursuing you. It's really good with the atmosphere. The friendly AI who spends a hell of a lot of time trying to get you murdered anyway, handy, great. I will say that I miss Phone Guy, just as a matter of principle, but he wouldn't have had a place in this game. And just watching this game, of course watching the Markiplier playthrough, because Total was like, okay, I can do this, okay, I can do this. And when we got to the end of Markiplier's second episode, which I think got us through night 3 and potentially a chunk of night 4, and I was so freaked out at some points that I was doing this, I was hugging my leg, I was like, no, can't do it, no. It scared the daylights out of me. And this was, again, another weekend when I'm alone in the house, Megan's off doing other stuff, I don't have any plans, it is me and the cat. And I watched the ending, the bad ending, and then went on TV Tropes because I can't help myself, and TV Tropes is very thorough when it comes to FNAF stuff, and looked up the good ending. And the thing with that, you know, the rampant paranoia and the lights are out, oh God, everything's gonna kill me, the reason I don't do horror stuff, can be explained away with some form of logic. That's the coping mechanism. It's not real doesn't always work, but it couldn't affect me because X helps. And for FNAF, it's always been location-based horror. You have to go there. You have to keep coming back every night. You have to go there. It's basically why I haven't set foot in a Chuck E. Cheese in a while. Ginger beer, good for the soul. And then you get to the end of Sister Location. And it's the first time that you, the nameless kind of protagonist, Eggs Benedict, do not survive your 5 nights. Like, the canon ending is the bad ending. The canon ending is you dying horribly and Ennard wearing you as a skin suit to get the fuck out of Dodge. Which is terrifying in and of itself. And then I read about the good ending. I read about the secret ending. I read about the take your child grabbing classes in the minigame and then go find the secret room and do X, Y, Z, and Theta. And part of me really wanted to see it because old FNAF 1 style gameplay, single animatronic, like they took a little bit from all of the other 4 games and threw it into this one sort of bonus section. And I'm like, that sounds really fun to watch. And then I found out that he follows you home. And that was the point where I just went, not okay. Not okay. It stopped being location-based now. Now it follows you home and you presumably die. And for about 3-4 days was just like, I'm not gonna watch this. I can't watch this. I don't think I can handle it. And I was in public and still just twitching as fuck. Not in a good place. Finally watched it. Finally sat down, threw in my headphones, watched it while I was doing stuff at work, mostly listened. And it was a good, interesting section. I really loved what he did with that. And we'll talk a little more about mechanics and development later. And then the bit where Ennard follows you home, you get to see the conclusion of the vampire soap opera, which I love that vampire soap opera so much more than I thought I would. I don't know why I enjoyed that so much. It was just like, I'm totally down for this. I am totally down for Deadbeat Vlad. Yes. So you get to go home and you get to watch the conclusion of your soap opera, and then Ennard just drags himself on screen. It's like, honey, are you okay? I don't think you're okay. And Markiplier's reaction is to just keep eating popcorn. And so one of my friends made a joke about, I'm just imagining Ennard dragging himself over to the couch, sitting down next to the protagonist, and watching the next episode of the vampire soap opera, and the two of them just sharing a bowl of popcorn. And I can't get that out of my head because the ending is ambiguous, so it's not Ennard followed you home to kill you. It's Ennard followed you home because he really wants to know how your soap ends. And that's all I can think of. And that has gone a long way towards defanging the midnight darkness paranoia of horror watching for me. So that helps. Thank goodness for friends with senses of humor. And whatever you can imagine will always, always, always be worse than what you see, which is why most horror movies don't show you the monster until like 2/3, 3/4 of the way through, if they show it to you at all. Because what they show you is never going to be as good as the creepy shit that you come up with in your mind. Never is. Human imagination. It's a crazy, crazy thing. Keeps you up at night. But these games have been part of my life for 2.5 years. They scare the hell out of me. They intrigue me. I have definitely not spent as much time and thought as MatPat trying to put them together and figure out what happened where and what the story is and all this fun stuff. I haven't read the novel because horror books are a whole other ball of wax, and the last time I tried that I picked up Stephen King's Cell, and let me tell you, that was a mistake. And if you want to know why it's a mistake and want to see all sorts of spoilers for it, we did a review of the Cell trailer on Silver Screen, so you can go watch me ramble on about that book there, because the long story short, don't waste your time. Cell's not good. Yeah, so that I lost my train of thought. I absolutely just, there it goes. The downside of recording these suckers live and putting them up wholesale. Yeah, these games have just been a part of my life for a good chunk of time. There was no way that I wasn't going to watch Sister Location, because I needed to know how it tied in, because I needed to know how it ended, because I needed to know what it added to the story. And I'm still waiting for MatPat to release his inevitable videos on it. And like I said, I'm sure he's just losing his goddamn mind at this point, trying to put something together. But I'm also just intrigued by all of this. It's interesting to see the fan community and the fan reactions. And like any community, you definitely kind of have your little corner that's like, you're great. Can you stay over there? Thanks. But for the most part, you have a lot of people who are just as interested as you are, who may or may not know the ins and outs of repairing or programming an animatronic, who work at Chuck E. Cheese's, who write horror, who are willing to sit down with you and talk about this could totally have been a thing, or this could have happened. And again, where I'm stuck is world building. What sort of crazy supernatural world, or what sort of magical realism sort of world? Because that's almost what we're bordering on at this point, because it is horror. But no one ever straight up says it's haunted. No one says it's possessed. No one says there's ghosts. No one really straight up says any of that sort of stuff. And usually using those taglines and using those words and that sort of thing is what makes it horror. This is leaning a little more towards magical realism, where you assume, and it's been a long time since I've talked about magical realism, so this is like, what can I remember from 10, 12 years ago in English class? It's old definitions. Magical realism being, for the most part, it's real life, but there's just kind of tinges of stuff on the fringe where you're like, that isn't quite real life as I know it. That's a little... It's like dipping your pinky toe into the supernatural. It's there, it colors the world, but it's not a be-all and end-all. And so if this is a magical realism sort of scenario, yeah, you know, possessed animatronics, that's kind of a thing that happens. But no one really questions it. No one goes, this is really scary. No one goes, wow, it's kind of terrifying that a bunch of security guards die on this job. No one goes, holy shit, Night 4 has the scariest message I think I have ever heard, and then Night 5 was worse. No one that we know of in world, at least, says stuff like this. These places aren't shut down. People don't come back from their first night on the job saying, yeah, those things definitely walked and tried to kill me. I'm a little freaked out. It's just kind of Tuesday. And that's one of the big differences. Horror, usually people realize that this is out of the ordinary and wrong and something is messed up. Magical realism is just like, yeah, it's Tuesday. It's a thing. Cool. It flavors the world, but it doesn't disrupt it enough for people to go, yeah, all right. So yeah, that picking apart the world, trying to figure out where these games take place, what kind of world it's in. I'm leaving the timeline to someone else. I mean, I keep going back to MatPat, but that's like the red versus blue timeline. You don't touch it if you don't have to. It's a little scary. In which the timeline is scarier than the games. Yeah. And I was talking with Megan a few nights ago about Sister Location, about these games. And she brought up that Sister Location feels a lot more like a sequel to the original. And we kind of started talking about game development and culture and the difference between having a huge company do it and having a single person do this, because hats off to Scott Cawthon, you have created a phenomenon. I don't know how, but you did. And did it, for the most part, solo. Because for larger games, you have, if you're going to have a sequel to a larger 4-star AAA, that's the phrase I was looking for, to a AAA title, you either have more of the same, or you have keeping a lot of the spirit of it, but different flavor, different mechanics. Like, this is still a Dragon Age game, but now we're doing this. Or this is still a BioShock game, but now we're kind of hopping in and out of dimensions and everything's really racist. Like, it's that sort of thing. It's either more or parallel. And what we had for Five Nights at Freddy's, I think, we got to see a developer's thought process going through these different games. Because you have FNAF 1, which was evidently made out of spite, which I cannot appreciate enough. Evidently someone made a comment to Scott about one of his previous games about how the characters looked like soulless robots or something like that, and he took that to heart, and that's where FNAF came from. Just made this game out of spite. And you can make some really good things out of spite. Like, if spite is the reason that you are creating stuff, occasionally you just hit gold. And that's what he did. That's absolutely what he did. So we have FNAF 1, which is mostly still images, a couple of GIFs, a few sound files, and takes up less space on a disc than the original Myst game. Like, this is not a very big game. And if you think about it, it's not a very complicated game. The gameplay itself, the basics of the gameplay are simple. Figuring out the patterns, being quick enough on the draw, and not losing your goddamn mind from paranoia is where the hard part comes in. And those are some of the best games. Easy to learn, learning curve. And as opposed to games that are like complicated but mostly the same all the way through, or complicated and the learning curve starts here and then goes up. One of my friends, I keep saying one of my friends, there are a bunch of different friends, but I'm not naming people on camera without their permission. So if you're watching this and you want to say, hey, that's me, do the thing, win the stuff, but I'm not going to say it without permission. One of my friends has a video game scale that is difficulty versus fun. And if it's more difficult than it is fun for most of the game, that's not really a game worth playing. You want difficulty and fun to kind of match up on a curve, as opposed to, well, it's more fun than difficult. Yeah, then it's a fun game to play. It's more difficult than fun. Why am I here? I think Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days is one of those more difficult than fun games. It did not adapt well. And so FNAF has the fun and difficult kind of in equal measures. It works pretty well on that line. FNAF 2, as a sequel, follows the more is more thing. More animatronics, more gimmicks, more doors, more everything. It's a bigger game and has much more to keep track of. Still the same gameplay ideals with a few more things added in. Here's the flashlight, here's the mask, here's the music box, you know. You have more things to keep track of, but it's still a similar idea. And so for FNAF 2, that's one where it starts getting more frustrating more quickly because there's just so much that you need to be cognizant of and that you need to do, and it's more difficult to balance. But again, as we have FNAF, and then we have more is more, and then we have FNAF 3, which scales it back and takes a look at, okay, what worked? Cameras, animatronics, atmosphere. And so we change it to, we still have the cameras, we still have the animatronics, but now you cannot trust the systems and you cannot trust your senses, because in character, and I absolutely love this decision. This is the premise of this game. It's one of my favorite story decisions. That we had some asshole who heard about these murders and these urban legends surrounding this pizzeria 30 years ago and went, I'm gonna do that. Because that's never a horror movie premise. Is let's bring up these urban legends. Let's say Candyman a whole bunch of times in a mirror. Let's do it. No, let's not. So they made you all know the premise of FNAF 3. It's a horror park. We're doing this. And the detail that I adore, that makes the game, that makes these mechanics more difficult, and that is just beautifully in character for the jackass who set up this park, is we also got the original systems and the original wiring. Because there are people who will go that far for authenticity, who will let their obsession with details and their obsession with whatever they're working with overrule anything resembling common sense or OSHA requirements, work safety. Who believes in that? It's a theme park. You better believe in work safety at a theme park. And so we have an unreliable camera system, unreliable wiring, and an unreliable air circulation system, which will malfunction and lead to hallucinations. And I just thought it was so clever that the game said, here's all the in-character reasons for our out-of-character mechanics for this game. It's so smart. I love it. Again, that's why 3 is one of my favorites, despite the fact that it never really scared me all that much. I love the details. I love what they did. And after going more and bigger, we scaled it back and we went, we want the same systems, but now they're not reliable. We've added a new system, so we can do more jump scares that aren't death, which threw everyone for a loop, the hallucinations. And we want one animatronic. And instead of waiting for them to come to you and kind of battening down the hatches, you don't have hatches. And so instead of just stay away and I'm going to close the doors till you get bored, you're actively going, look over there, go chase the sound, hi. And shutting the vent if he's in there, because that's the only thing you can shut, and praying that your game of keep away works well enough to get you into the next night. I love the way they added story. I love the pixel games. I love the tapes from Phone Guy. I think this game has one of the best blend of story and mechanics. I loved it all. I thought it was wonderful. And again, we look at FNAF 4, and I look at it from a state of, I didn't enjoy FNAF 4. But it's another instance of rolling it back, looking what worked. Okay, stay with the animatronics, shake up the mechanics a little bit. We still have 2 doors, we still have Foxy who's different, but now we're going to make it a lot darker and a lot quieter, and now you have to listen, and by the way, there's something behind you. And so it still rolled with similar gameplay, but still tried something just enough out of the box to work. And as far as a game developer thought process goes, I feel like these 4 games, if this had been a large studio, we would have had FNAF 1, we might have had FNAF 2, and then we would have gone a sister location. And I mean, FNAF World is worth mentioning in that it was just so completely different and evidently has a few plot elements in it once we put in the patches to actually explain what the heck was going on. And so there's that, but in terms of development, it's kind of the weird little foray into a different style. It's just over there somewhere. It's a good time. It's a good time. But if this had been done by a larger studio, like in my theory, we would have 1 and 2, 1, maybe 2, and sister location. Because all of these different mechanics, all of this different, what if we tried this, what if we tried that, what if we tried this other thing, would have been a brainstorming location. And then they would have narrowed it down to, let's do this, or let's do this other thing, or how about this different location. Whereas for Scott, and I'm talking on my ass here, I have not interviewed the man, I don't know what his process was, I don't know if he had a sounding board or a discussion or anything like that. This feels a lot more like, I did this, they want more, let's make it more and bigger. Okay, I did that, there's room for another one, what if I tried this instead? And there was a lot more, here's an idea that I like, let's start building around it. As opposed to, here's a bunch of it, here's an idea, but here's another idea, and here's a third. Well, let's compare and contrast. What works for the games? What works for the lore? What works for... I feel like there might have been a lot less workshopping when it came to the development, and so we get to see a single guy's development process from 1 through 4. And FNAF World, which again, I feel like kind of, okay. And then actually taking a lot more of his time, not releasing sister location early, which he is known for releasing things way earlier than he said he would. And so actually waiting for the release date and waiting to do more with it. And then coming up with a game that is still very much Five Nights at Freddy's at its core, but is a game unto itself. It is on its own. It's a very, very different experience. It's an incredible game. And it feels like this is where he was heading after going through 2 and 3 and 4 and FNAF World and figuring out what worked and figuring out what didn't and what was loved and what was hated and what was in the middle and needed to be worked on. It feels like it was all coming to sister location. And so, again, I feel like, yeah, sister location feels a lot like a sequel to the first one. Well, it took 2 and 3 and 4 and World to get there. And instead of all of that being behind closed doors in a multi-million-dollar company, we actually got the games released and got to see all of them, and I prefer it that way. I like being able to see this thought process. Not everything's going to work, but it's interesting enough to watch it go, to see like, yep, we tried this was great, this was wonderful, this got dropped like a hot potato for reasons, and then we moved on to this. Like, the mask never came back. The fucked up ventilation shafts never came back, a whole bunch of that. And then the features from them distilled and put into the alternate ending of Sister Location, with the vents, with the single animatronic, with the listening, with the cameras, and just being where you are and having to stay to 6 a.m. till the maintenance staff shows up. I just thought it was very well done, and I enjoyed being able to see the process and getting fully realized games, except for FNAF World, which took a lot longer to fully realize, but nonetheless, getting full-on games every step of the way, instead of, well, here's some concept art for something that might have been, and here's an idea but it didn't really happen, and here's something that's just going to be a little mini game that we'll release. Actually getting to see that process and go through it and do the lore and do all the little mini games and find all the little Easter eggs, and I appreciated it quite a bit. It's been a lot of fun to watch. It's been a lot of fun to theorize about. It's been a lot of fun to talk about. It's been a lot of fun to dig into. And it's kind of crazy that this little game on Steam, released from a single person, became such an internet phenomenon. Multiple sequels, cosplayers, a movie deal, which evidently it's still in production. Like, this isn't one of those things like Zombies Ate My Neighbors where they got the movie deal and then nothing happened. As of earlier this year, I checked, it's still in production. The director is still tweeting about it. Like, this is evidently still going to be a thing. And there's no reason for it not to be when the franchise is still so popular. Merchandise deals with at least 2 large companies, including Sanshi and Funko Pop. Like, this is lightning in a bottle. And instead of having one game and never quite being able to hit it, he's hit the mark 5.5. Again, I never know how to count FNAF World, because it's just kind of doing its own thing over in the fun corner. But he's hit the mark multiple times, multiple different games. And Sister Location has been out, at the time of this taping, for less than a week. We'll still be talking about it for a good chunk of time. And it's only a matter of time until we get Sister Location 2, or I don't even know what the next one will be. And the sheer amount of spin-off games, Five Nights at Candy's, One Night at Flumpty's, The Joy of Creation, there are so many of them. And I think Markiplier has played all of them. Literally all of them. If it's a FNAF clone, he's played it. The fact that people have been inspired from this game to make their own. The production values that you can do now for a game just from using RPG Maker, just from having stills, just from doing stuff like that. It is incredible, this sort of, the cultural movement that FNAF is at the epicenter of. And I would argue that FNAF and Undertale, for very different reasons, are a good indication of where a good chunk of the video game industry is going. Where it's nice to have big budget games, it's nice to have them look nice, I have an HD TV, this is beautiful, oh my god, look at the graphics. I don't particularly care how many fibers are on that fly's ass. I care about how the game works. So if you're going to build me a beautiful Assassin's Creed world and then have people literally fall through the floor and make the game unplayable, you have failed as a game designer, as a game production company. And so there'll always be people who want everything to be pretty. There will always be people who will be sold on the graphics of a game and how nice it looks and how high-end it is, and that's not a problem. I mean, people have their preferences. But in the past couple of years, we've had at least 2 games. There are probably more that never truly made it to my radar, aside from, I think Off was another one of these, that are indie games that are not graphically intensive. And I mean, Sister Location looks incredible. FNAF, all the FNAF games look pretty damn good. And Undertale is pixels. Undertale is, it's 64-bit. It's 32-bit, you can play it on a toaster. Off is pixels. But these are games where it was very much, here's our premise, it's different. This is how we're executing it. It's, here's a very simple game about being in the hellish spin-off version of Chuck E. Cheese's and being stuck there until the morning. It's, here's a game, God, it's been so long since I've played off, I couldn't actually give you the summary. It was just really fucking weird. Here's an RPG where you don't have to kill anyone. And then here's our execution. And suddenly how the games look doesn't matter. What matters is that they're interesting and they're fun to play. And I feel like this is part of where the industry is going. Given that RPG Maker now exists, given that a lot more people have access to technology more inexpensively, coding classes inexpensively, things like that, that people are able to pick up the basics, that people are able to find tutorials online on YouTube for how to use RPG Maker, for how to code, for how to create different graphics. This is becoming a much more open industry. And seeing indie games like this that are so incredibly, ridiculously, massively popular, that affect so many people in so many different ways, I feel like this is where we're headed. We're always going to have the big AAA game companies, we're always going to have your Dragon Ages and your Mass Effects and your Final Fantasies and your FIFAs and your Call of Duties. Yeah, I'm okay with most of those. Call of Duty. It's always going to be a thing. But I'm intrigued to see where the indie scene comes into play, and when the indie scene starts being a much more direct competitor with the advent of Steam, with the advent of individual people being able to make these huge franchises that just last on their own and grow exponentially. I'll just be intrigued to see where this goes. Because I think this is starting to herald a shift in the industry, and I honestly don't think that's a bad thing. And I think I started at point A in this video, and I'm kind of off in the area of L somewhere. We're going to start talking about Kia's personal experience with the Five Nights at Freddy's, and we're going to end with a talk about the state of the video game industry as a whole. Because that's how this works. Yeah. Yep. I think I have exhausted things to say on FNAF for now. Sister Location still scares the bejesus out of me. I'm still not over it. I will probably wind up watching the whole playthrough a few more times. I will be waiting with bated breath for the inevitable game theory video because I fucking love game theory videos, let's be real. And we'll see where this goes. I love this franchise. It scares the shit out of me. But I love this franchise. And I can't wait to see what the fans do with Sister Location. I can't wait to see the cosplay. Oh my god. I cannot wait to see the cosplay. That's going to be a ton of fun. And I mean, I've done one myself. It's a blast. It's such fun to do. You get to creep on people occasionally. You get to stand there and smile like the fucking world is ending and see how many people get scared. FNAF cosplay is a ton of fun. And I realize that makes me sound like a complete creeper at cons, which I try not to be. But yeah. I want to see where it goes from here. I want to see where the fandom takes it. I want to see where the movie goes. God help me, I might actually see a horror movie in the theater, and I can't see that going well for myself, but it's FNAF, so I'm there. And I'll be interested to see where Scott takes this next. Because from what I know at this point, Sister Location is a rollicking success. And so we'll have to see where he goes from here, what his next plans are. Again, if we have a Sister Location 2, or if we have another spin-off that's going to be out there somewhere. And we're going to do stuff. It's going to be great. But I'm looking forward to whatever the next thing is. And it's going to scare the shit out of me. It always does. It always will. This is a thing that does not change for a horror franchise, but it's a ton of fun. I sincerely hope that everyone who watched this video is familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's. Otherwise, you've been here for 3/4 of an hour. Kudos, man. Kudos. Love you guys. thank you for watching. It's my first vlog. It's actually been a really good time. I have enjoyed doing this. If you have something you would like me to talk about, I'm gonna have to like set up a form stack or something. But for now, throw it in the comments. Talk to me about your experiences with Five Nights at Freddy's. Did you play the first game? What game did you come in on? Did it scare the heck out of you? Do you not understand why everyone loves it? Do you cosplay? Do you want to meet Scott? Do you own all of the plushies sitting up above your bed? Which I will not bring FNAF merchandise into the house. I am superstitious as fuck. And I will not bring those little plushies in. That's not gonna happen. But how did you get into FNAF? What are you doing with it? What intrigues you about it? What would you like to see next? Throw it in the comments. Let's get a discussion going. And, you know, thank you guys for watching. If you want to follow me on all of the other social medias, it's at Kiaxet. That's Kiaxet. Pretty much everywhere, with the exception of Snapchat, which is Kia Prime, because there is a Kiaxet account there, but it belongs to someone else, and I don't know who. So yeah, Snapchat is Kia Prime. I'm also on Silver Screams, which is our sister network that I do with Megan. We sit down and we talk about horror stuff, and it's great, even though I'm a complete wuss, as I have established in this video. So that is at Silver_Screams on Twitter and Instagram, Silver Screams on Facebook, and on YouTube, just search for Silver Screams and you will come up with the whole playlist. We're taking a break for a little bit because our schedules are conflicting right now, but we will be back. We watch horror trailers. We might talk about FNAF there. I don't know. And we have been watching this season of Scream Queens, which has been an absolute blast. So if you want to do that, and have a link somewhere here, do the thing, win the stuff. If you would like to support this channel, I have a Ko-fi, K-O-F-I. I have no idea how to pronounce that. The link is in the description below. It's great. This is Winter. She's been here the whole time, demanding attention. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for sticking around for so long for my first vlog, and we will see where these go. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.